Imagine a giant, a force of nature that impresses not just with size, but also with intelligence and charisma. That's Nasser El Sombaty, known to many as the Professor. With an innovative physique and proportions that redefine the concept of perfection in bodybuilding, Nasser was more than just muscles. He was a figure who fascinated and divided opinions. Despite being a strong contender for the Mr. Olympia title, Nasser never took the trophy home. What he did achieve, however, was a reputation as one of the sport's most controversial figures. His nickname, the Bitter Man, emerged after years of frustrations and negative experiences in professional bodybuilding, which shaped his critical view of the sport. Instead of enjoying his retirement with guest posing appearances and promotional events, Nasser took a different path. He became an outspoken critic. In interviews filled with bold statements, he attacked bodybuilding authorities, judges, and even fellow competitors. His frustration reached a peak with scathing criticisms of Arnold Schwarzenegger, an icon of the sport and a central figure in the industry. This controversial stance solidified his reputation as one of the most talked-about athletes of the late 1990s and early 2000s. The question remains, how could someone so admired by fans transform into such a harsh critic of the industry? To understand the final chapters of Nasser's life, we need to go back to his roots in the sport, explore his meteoric rise, and examine his relationship with bodybuilding's most prestigious event, the Mr. Olympia. But before we dive into this fascinating story, I want to remind you of something. This channel only stays active with your support. If you enjoy videos like this, make sure to subscribe now, hit the notification bell, and don't forget to leave a like. Also, consider becoming a channel member. It's a small contribution for you, but it means the world to my work. And we're aiming to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I'm counting on you. Now, let's uncover the story of Nasser El Sombaty. Nasser El Sombaty was born in Stuttgart, Germany, on October 15, 1965. Interestingly, bodybuilding was never part of his initial plans. As a teenager, his goal in lifting weights was simply to strengthen his legs and improve his performance in soccer, a sport he was passionate about. He even expressed deep disdain for the bodybuilders he saw in magazines, stating in a 2008 interview with Bodybuilding.com that he found their overly muscular physiques and bulging veins outright repulsive. However, his disinterest began to fade when a former Hungarian weightlifter at his gym recognized the natural potential in his physique. This mentor encouraged Nasser to train his entire body in a balanced way, which ultimately sparked a new appreciation for bodybuilding. With just 2 years of structured training, Nasser heeded the urging of his gym peers and entered his first local bodybuilding competition in Germany, competing in the junior category. He placed 6th, but the experience was enough to ignite his passion for the sport. From that point on, he fully committed to bodybuilding, intensifying his training and competing in amateur shows. However, Nasser didn't neglect his education. After finishing high school, he enrolled in university and excelled academically, earning a master's degree in political science, history, and sociology. Moreover, he developed strong communication skills, becoming fluent in several languages, an ability that later helped him win fans across the globe. As he developed his physique, Nasser also sharpened his mind, blending the discipline of physical training with intellectual acumen and interpersonal skills that set him apart from many of his peers in the sport. This duality, physical and mental strength, made Nasser a unique figure in the world of bodybuilding, proving that it was possible to achieve excellence both on and off the stage. The journey of a young man who once despised bodybuilding to becoming one of its most prominent figures is a testament to how circumstances and passion can transform a life. In the years that followed, Nasser began solidifying his reputation in the bodybuilding world. His unique combination of intellect, charisma, and an awe-inspiring physique earned him the nickname The Professor, reflecting not only his commanding presence, but also his ability to articulate ideas with clarity and depth. Results on stage soon followed. In 1990, Nasser reached a pivotal milestone in his career by earning the coveted IFBB Pro card. That same year, he competed in 3 Grand Prix events, finishing in the top 10 in each. a remarkable achievement for a newcomer to the professional scene. As the years passed, his consistency on stage drew even more attention. By 1993, Nasser elevated his competitive standing, turning top 10 finishes into impressive third-place rankings, signaling to the world that his physical and technical development was far from over. His success in European competitions didn't go unnoticed by the ever-watchful eyes of the U.S. bodybuilding industry. Recognizing his potential to stand out among the world's best, Nasser received a special invitation to compete on bodybuilding's most prestigious stage, the 1994 Mr. Olympia. This opportunity marked a defining moment in Nasser's career. The bodybuilder who had once dismissed the sport was now set to compete against its biggest names on a stage that symbolized the pinnacle of professional bodybuilding. The invitation wasn't just an acknowledgement of his physical transformation, but also a validation of his dedication to the sport and the impact he was already making on the global scene. His transition from an amateur European competitor to an international star was well underway, and the name Nasser El Sombaty was becoming synonymous with both greatness and controversy in the world of bodybuilding. No one expected Nasser to challenge Dorian Yates, the undisputed winner of the 1994 Mr. Olympia. Yates was at his peak, and athletes like Sean Ray and Kevin Levrone, who finished second and third, seemed untouchable. Yet, Nasser shocked everyone with an impressive debut, securing a respectable 7th place. This placement not only established him as a promising athlete, but also set him apart from renowned competitors such as Andreas Munzer, Samir Banout, a former Mr. Olympia, and a then-rising Ronnie Coleman, who would later dominate the sport. It was a performance that captured the attention of fans and, most importantly, Joe Weider, the influential businessman and magnate of bodybuilding. Recognizing Nasser's potential, Weider offered him a full-time contract, an opportunity that transformed both his career and personal life. Up until that point, Nasser had to balance a full-time job with the grueling demands of training, a factor that limited his growth as a professional athlete. The contract with Weider, though not extremely lucrative, allowed him to dedicate himself exclusively to bodybuilding. Moreover, being associated with the Weider name was a milestone in any professional athlete's career, elevating Nasser to the elite ranks of the industry. The following year, he made another impressive leap at the Mr. Olympia, securing 3rd place in 1995, finishing behind only Kevin Levrone and the unstoppable Dorian Yates. This placement confirmed that Nasser wasn't just improving, he was solidifying his position as one of the best bodybuilders of his generation. In 1996, Nasser repeated his 3rd place finish, but his journey that year was marred by controversy. After the competition, he was disqualified for failing an IFBB-administered diuretic test. Although the incident sparked debates and headlines, it didn't diminish the impact he made on stage. His physique that year was widely praised as one of the best of his career, showcasing symmetry, definition, and an astonishing muscular mass of approximately 300 pounds, about 136 kilograms. When Nasser learned of his disqualification a month after the event, he accepted the decision, acknowledging that he had taken the risk of using substances under the assumption that tests would not be conducted. This risky approach reflected the competitive atmosphere and behind-the-scenes tensions of bodybuilding during that era. Despite the controversy, Nasser's career continued to soar. He remained a constant presence on the podium and racked up victories at events like the IFBB Grand Prix, solidifying his status as one of the most formidable bodybuilders on the circuit. His colossal physique, combined with impressive symmetry and charisma, made him a threat in any competition. However, there was still one thing missing from his resume: the Mr. Olympia crown. In 1997, everything seemed aligned in his favor. Nasser was in the best shape of his life, and many believed this would be the year he broke Dorian Yates's dominance and reached the pinnacle of the bodybuilding world. Expectations were sky-high, and the stage was set for the professor to claim his ultimate victory. The 1997 Mr. Olympia became one of the most memorable and controversial events in bodybuilding history, marked by a showdown between two titans, Dorian Yates and Nasser. That year, Yates, a 5-time consecutive champion, entered the competition determined to secure his 6th title and further cement his legacy as one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. However, his road to the Olympia stage was fraught with physical challenges. After years of brutal training that had made him a legend in the sport, his body began to show severe wear and tear. Just weeks before the event, Yates suffered a triceps tear that not only caused intense pain but also disrupted his symmetry and ability to execute certain critical poses. While his imposing physique was still enough to intimidate most competitors, those closely following the sport knew he wasn't at his peak. On the other hand, Nasser arrived at the 1997 Olympia at the peak of his career. Following a series of impressive performances, he was bigger, more defined, and displayed symmetry that caught the attention of even the most critical judges. His incredibly sculpted waist, paired with his ability to maintain superior muscle quality, made him one of the competition's standout contenders. Few expected Nasser to dethrone Dorian, but once he stepped on stage, it became clear he was ready to make history. Rivaling Yates in both size and aesthetics, Nasser showcased a rare combination of muscular volume and refinement that many believed was unbeatable. The showdown between the two became the event's highlight. While Dorian still held an edge in some areas, such as his signature wide and dense back, the triceps tear visibly hindered his presentation, limiting his ability to execute certain poses and affecting his overall flow. Meanwhile, Nasser not only displayed an incredible physique, but also commanded the stage with confidence, directly challenging Yates's dominance. As the competition progressed, the audience and judges remained divided. For the first time in years, it seemed possible that Dorian Yates could lose his crown. When the moment of the awards ceremony arrived, the tension in the arena was palpable. The announcement of Dorian Yates's 6th consecutive victory was met with mixed reactions, celebration from some and outrage from others. For many, the result symbolized Yates's resilience in overcoming physical limitations to remain on top. For others, it was yet another controversial decision in bodybuilding, where status and favoritism seemed to outweigh actual on-stage performance. Nasser, who placed second, became the focal point of discussions. The bodybuilding community was split. Some believed he had been robbed of the title, while others argued that Yates, even narrowly, deserved the win. This loss was more than just a setback for Nasser. It was a turning point in his career. Although he remained one of the most respected and feared bodybuilders in the following years, this second-place finish represented a missed opportunity to reach the pinnacle of the sport. For many fans, that was the year Nasser should have been crowned Mr. Olympia. The debate surrounding the 1997 event remains alive to this day, fueling discussions about the judging criteria in bodybuilding. While Dorian retired from competition as a 6-time champion, Nasser entered a new phase in his life, marked by introspection, changes, and an increasingly critical stance toward the industry. This loss, far from being just another missed title, symbolized the start of a new chapter in the life of one of the sport's most controversial and iconic athletes. In many ways, 1997 marked the beginning of the end for Nasser as a dominant force in professional bodybuilding. While he continued to compete at a high level in subsequent years, the shine of his prime began to fade. In 1998, he placed third at the Mr. Olympia, finishing behind Flex Wheeler and champion Ronnie Coleman, who was beginning his legendary run as one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. Nasser's last major victory came at the 1999 Arnold Classic, a significant triumph that also marked the end of his time among the sport's elite. From that point on, he gradually declined in the competitive hierarchy, eventually announcing his retirement in 2005. After hanging up his posing trunks, Nasser became an even more polarizing figure in the bodybuilding world. He began voicing his opinions with increasing boldness and controversy. In 2008, he participated in a series of explosive interviews with David Robinson of Bodybuilding.com, during which he unleashed harsh criticisms against nearly every aspect of the sport, from competitors to organizers and judges. Nasser spared no one in his tirades. He accused former bodybuilder Miloš Sarcev of owing him $2,550 for steroids and alleged that Sarcev had silicone calf implants, which he regarded as fraudulent in the sport. He also mocked Greg Kovacs, deriding his massive size and claiming Kovacs was so oversized that he could barely move. If that seems extreme, Nasser had more attacks in his arsenal. He ridiculed Dave Palumbo, dubbing him Jumbo Palumbo and criticizing his physique as distorted and aesthetically unappealing by bodybuilding standards. Shawn Ray, another legendary name in the sport, was nicknamed Chihuahua Ray, with Nasser describing him as a man with a Napoleon complex. Paul Dillett wasn't spared either. Nasser called him the Great Plains, a sarcastic reference to what he claimed were gaps between Dillett's muscles. Each comment seemed meticulously crafted to provoke and polarize, further cementing Nasser's reputation as one of the sport's most controversial figures. However, Nasser's harshest criticism was reserved for those involved in the 1997 Mr. Olympia. He believed he had been deliberately sabotaged by bodybuilding's elite, including Joe Weider, the judges, and influential journalists like the late Peter McGough. According to Nasser, a conspiracy was in place to ensure Dorian Yates remained on top at all costs, and for that to happen, he needed to be kept from winning. This embittered perspective shaped the narrative of his later years in the sport and solidified his critical stance toward the industry, a world he had helped shape but felt had never given him the recognition he deserved. Nasser's inflammatory behavior, though condemned by some, reflected a man deeply frustrated, believing his career had been marred by injustices. His words echoed for years, fueling debates about the dark underbelly of professional bodybuilding and leaving a legacy as controversial as his career on stage. "There are many reasons I didn't win," Nasser declared in one of his most pointed statements about the 1997 Mr. Olympia. Some judges didn't want to upset their buddy Dorian. They didn't want him to leave bodybuilding with a loss, especially after all his injuries and sacrifices. Above all, they weren't willing to give the sport's most prestigious title to a foreigner. In their eyes, that would highlight the inferiority of the US-Europe axis. These words paved the way for even more personal and direct attacks. Nasser didn't just critique the results. He openly criticized Dorian Yates's physique on stage that year. Yates won with a huge gut. He looked like he was 6 months pregnant. His waist looked like a drum. He had a freshly torn left triceps, injuries in both quadriceps, and a compromised hip. And still, he won with a perfect score. "It was simply unbelievable," Nasser stated, with indignation that still seemed to burn more than a decade after the competition. He labeled the result as completely staged, calling it the biggest robbery in 20th century bodybuilding. For Nasser, the judging clique had decided the outcome long before the event even began, ensuring that Dorian Yates would keep his crown regardless of how he performed on stage. The anger and frustration he felt about that loss weren't just about the missed title, but about what he saw as a fundamental injustice undermining the sport's credibility. Even years after the event, Nasser never forgave what he believed to be a betrayal by professional bodybuilding. "The sport's greatest show was forever tarnished," he said, with a tone that mixed bitterness and resignation. "Honestly, it broke my trust. It will never be the same. That loss of trust is beyond repair." His words revealed a man deeply scarred by a moment he saw as the breaking point of his career. For Nasser, the 1997 Mr. Olympia wasn't just a loss on stage. It was emotional and professional, scorched earth. He viewed the event as a symbol of everything wrong in bodybuilding: favoritism, backstage politics, and decisions that prioritized narrative over merit. Although his talent and physique placed him among the greatest in the sport's history, Nasser spent the rest of his life overshadowed by that loss, a wound that, in his own words, never healed. The series of interviews Nasser gave in 2008 marked a turning point in how he was remembered by the bodybuilding community after his retirement. His controversial statements not only solidified his image as a harsh critic of the industry, but also created rifts with many of the peers he publicly attacked. Unfortunately, these wounds never had the chance to heal, as Nasser passed away on March 20, 2013, at the age of 47, due to complications from malaria contracted in Egypt. His death left the community reflecting on his legacy, torn between his contributions to the sport and the conflicts that defined his later years. For many, assessing Nasser's legacy was no easy task. Sean Ray, one of his colleagues and a target of his criticisms, noted that Nasser had distanced himself from both competitors and the sport, especially in his later years. He became disenchanted with the industry that brought him to us, Ray commented, while also recalling Nasser as a jokester backstage during his early competitive years. According to Sean, Nasser's behavior toward those in the sport changed over time, growing darker and more disappointing. Conversely, Peter McGough, one of the journalists Nasser openly criticized, offered a different perspective. McGough described Nasser as a determined competitor, a true rebel in bodybuilding who, even in the face of adversity, could find humor in life. Nasser was a unique bodybuilder, someone who carved his own path in an incredibly competitive sport, McGough said in 2013. This view highlights the complexity of Nasser's legacy. A man remembered not only for his bitterness but also for his determination, humor, and individuality. It's important to recognize Nasser's impressive achievements throughout the 1990s. Despite never winning the Mr. Olympia title, he reached remarkable heights, placing in the top 3 in 31 competitions from 1993 to 1999. With nearly 300 pounds, 136 kilograms, of pure muscle, he proved it was possible to combine size, symmetry, and refined aesthetics. However, his career is often defined by the controversial second place at the 1997 Mr. Olympia, an event that left deep marks not only on his career but also on his heart. Now we want to hear from you. What's your take on Nasser El Sombaty? Was his bitterness in his later years justified by the situations he faced in the sport, or did he go too far in attacking his peers and the industry that celebrated him? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you think. And don't forget to share this video with friends who enjoy stories like this one. Before you go, drop a like. It helps a lot with visibility and motivates me to keep bringing you content like this. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and help us reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm counting on you. Let's do this.